Wow. Packed house inside the house here at the Dirt Bike Test Studios office compound. A lot of people out in the field. We've got a lot to talk about. Not a lot of questions, but then the questions started coming in at the last minute. Good to see Dave Scott, George out there. Grant Polanski. He's probably going to ask us some 500, what do they call that thing? An XCFW now?
The new off-road bike?
Yeah, he has one. We should get Grant to call in. Grant should call in, and then he can Polanski how good that bike is. It's probably really good, but he could make it better in his own way. So, yeah, good to see it. Nate Delaney from DDC. We'll talk about DDC sprockets. Clint Chu, Tim Gomi. I didn't know they had TVs out in Randsburg. Garrett's there. Garrett wants us to talk about betas. All kinds of stuff. Paul Neff, who is my partner at the Jimmy Lewis Off-Road Training Schools through Cispus Cycles. We're going to be doing some classes up in the Pacific Northwest. And last but not least, Taco Mike is here. Mike Spurgeon.
Howdy, everybody.
So Mike is our special guest tonight. He suffered through a trail ride with me today.
Epic. So good.
No, shh. It was.
Hang on, I got lost. So
I know you got lost, but that's what happens because it was so dusty. It was a lot of dust. We rode in. What do we have out here? What's the dirt? It's called fesh, poof dirt.
Talc?
So we rode through talc, rocks, a lot of hoop-de-doos.
Hoop-de-doos?
Yeah, a lot of hoop-de-doos.
That's a geographical term?
Hoop-de-doos. That's how I say it. And just like it's like the kind. It's just. I mean, we love riding, and we'll go suffer through all that crap to go ride here. So it was good, and we had a group with us. I don't remember everybody's names because I just don't. But they're all here tonight because they're buying stuff from Taco Mike. He's got a little cart. It's kind of like a taco cart that he pushes around.
Like a paleta cart. Yep.
Yeah, and he's gonna dish out some ECUs, some what other things you got?
Like skid plates,
yeah, all kinds of stuff for these guys. So he's got his little bell. He jingles his little ding 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 ding
bike parts
bell. Yeah, and so they're all here. And we said you can't get them until after the show. You have to come and hang out with us and ask questions,
which we have. They were good.
And then Hans, who's another local guy here, said I don't want to come. And I'm like, come on, Hans. I mean, you're the only one that knows where I live. So he says, nah, I'm tired. We went riding through all those hoop-de-doos and all that silt. My eyes have silt in them. And I said, but I got some good tequila. And he's, I'll be there. So we're out here. Glad everybody's joining in. Tech Talk Taco Tuesday is Dirt Bike Tests weekly podcast where we talk about motorcycles and motorcycle-related products. We can answer 9 out of 10 questions that you throw at us without referring to a reference manual. I bring in professionals that may or may not agree with my opinion. That's why both of my logos are up on the screen right there. That's me, Jimmy Lewis. I'm your host, and I've been doing this stuff for way too long, and I have fun doing it. I don't really care that much. So I'll tell you what I really think because it doesn't affect my bottom line. Thank you to DDC, Delaney Drive Components, for helping us out, sponsoring the show. As you remember from last week, we have a code that might still work. Tech Talk will get you some sprockets, so go get yourself some of the best, lightest, longest lasting sprockets you've ever used. I use them on my bikes. Mike uses something else, and I said you can't talk about him because that's what happens when we get a sponsor in here. It just completely changes the dynamic of the show because you know.
Props to the sponsors.
Prop to the sponsors, but he uses ones that are very similar, just like not totally quite as good. He probably is going to switch after I get through them, but DDC helps us out. And also Climb has been a big supporter of Dirt Bike Tests from the inception. They're back. They're helping us out. I wear Climb gear. Climb supports my off-road riding schools quite a bit. And I like it. I was perfectly comfortable all day long today when I was riding. in my wonderful climb gear. Were you, Hans?
Yes, I was.
Yep. You had some duct tape on your gear, though.
Yeah, I tore my kneecap out.
Tore your kneecap. Yeah, because that's the other thing we have here is bushes that don't like you or your gear. Yeah, along with the silt and the fesh and the hoop-de-doos and the rocks. So good times. Anyways, so we will have some coming up soon, not in this show, but soon. We're going to have some pretty cool things that Climb wants to do with this show to support us, support you. Really cool ideas we've come up with. And then, of course, we always have Kate's Real Food. If you want a discount code on quite possibly the best trail snack you've ever put in your mouth, email me. And just you have to figure out how to do that on your own. I'm not going to give my email address out, but it's not that hard. It might be my name at my website, and then email for a discount code, and then blow up Kate's website, and she'll send you the most awesome snacks. I got to get Kate in here. She's gnarly.
Know her? You know her, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We've read about her.
She's gnarly. Like gnarly rider in
Oregon?
No, Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah, Idaho/Wyoming. She's up there right on the Idaho-Wyoming border. So good to see everybody. That's a little bit of our business. We are having a great time talking about. We had like a pre-show meeting that got out of control. We didn't think we had enough questions, and now we have way more than we know what to do with. Mike has 2 full pages. So we may not get to phone calls, but if you really want to call, like Grant, I know Grant's already trying to call me on my regular number, and that's why I'm going to turn my buzzer off on my phone.
Could we do that? Could you like do a call?
Oh yeah, we do calls. We have all the technology to do it here. We're the
legit.
most. We are quite possibly the most motorcycle friendly podcast in Pahrump that's going on tonight. Yeah, I'm sure about it. Pahrump Valley of the Dirt People, which I say affectionately because we have fesh and rocks and pricky bushes that tear your gear if you run into them. I go around them all. That's why my stuff looks so good. Okay, let's see. The first question of the night is the one that came in on one of the posts. Ryan Shute says, I need some tips on a new Yamaha to make it more stall resistant and easier starting. He wants an ignition and fuel map on a YZ250FX 2020. Ryan, email Trevor. Email Trevor at dirtbiketest.com since he rode that bike, and ask him what he thinks of it. And he's going to say, well, we didn't have the bike long enough to test. We didn't really get the chance to do those maps, which is true. And then quite possibly he'll get his hands on one and do additional testing and get you those answers. But
doesn't that bike have the Power Tune app, the Yamaha Power Tune app?
The Power Tune app, yeah. Exactly, which is awesome. And so you can change stuff. The starting, I think if the bike's really, it's stock and it's not starting very good, a lot of times there's a zero position, like, zero throttle, 0 RPM, which aids in starting. Mm-hmm. If you have that app, which is free, you should have it, try riching it up, like, go +4 on it and see if that helps the starting. And then go -4 on the fueling on that and see if that helps the starting and see if it makes a difference. And because maybe, I don't know, you didn't tell me where you're at, and if you're super high altitude, you might want to go -4 and maybe it'll help. Might be too rich. You just never know. But don't be afraid to play with that app. But starting is kind of that 0 RPM, 0 throttle position is typically where it is. And also, if you're having issues on starting, we have found if you get bad gas in your bike, and Mike can speak to this from experience from today, if your bike sits around and maybe you don't have the best gas in it, it can affect your fuel injector and your fuel filters and things like that. What do we do to your bike today besides, you had some old bad gas in it?
Are we going to plug this?
Yeah, we're going to plug it, and they better come in and sponsor the show.
Sponsor this.
Or we're going to say we used some stuff. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
It was this stuff. It was really good if I could remember what it was called. But we used this stuff. I don't remember what it was called, but if you're watching this, because you're going to be listening to this like in a year and a half, and you go, what was that stuff called?
So
and if
product
this,
placement right here.
If this stuff were sponsoring this show, I would tell you what it is. but your ears are burning right now going, good grief, what is it? It's the stuff that's in front of the camera. So now you're pissed off because you have to go, you're listening to this podcast, you're going to have to go look at the video, and then we would put a link to it and the thing, but you don't have a link in your ears, and that's the difference between podcast and live video and all this stuff. This isn't free. All this equipment that's sitting around here isn't free. My time is like, actually, I should pay you to watch me, and that's probably what a lot of people do on the internets. They give their motorcycles away, don't they?
To you?
No, to the fans that watch the shows.
Oh, we give
They
a lot of
raffle
stuff.
them off?
I'm sure we give a lot of stuff away. I'm sure there's all kinds of swag.
So anyway, so this stuff right here, it's actually the Chevron Power Sports and Small Engine, Chevron Techron Small Engine and Power Sports fuel system treatment, and it's worked. I've had it work in my bikes. We saw it work in Mike's bike today. It was hard starting and reluctant to run very well. We put a pretty good dose in there, and it ran. And having new gas helps, but a lot of times, so in your bike, a lot of times you have bad gas, and it kind of gets in there, it sits in there, it helps kind of plug, get junk near the injector, and like junk, it's like really small particulate junk that you probably can't see, but that's the stuff that these fuel cleaners can take out. So, product plug. Okay, take it off the screen.
Yeah, they didn't pay enough to have it on there the whole time.
It's not going to sit there the whole time.
So what we did on my bike, I had a bike that I was riding today that had, I don't know, probably a year-old gas. And I have found on fuel-injected bikes that when you sit around, these fuel-injected bikes sit, I used to have this misconception or this thought that it was only the carbureted bikes that would have, the fuel separation issue in the bowl, which is an actual thing. So the ethanol, the light alcohols will evaporate out of the fuel, and then you'll be left with the solids, and that will gum up your jets and gum up the bowl. That's a real thing. If you have a full tank of gas, that's less likely to happen. You would have to evaporate all of the liquids away to get those solids in the bottom of the tank. A couple of gallons, it's not going to happen. But I used to think that the injector was immune. A fuel-injected bike, the injector was immune to any of the problems where you'd have any, and I'm going to use the word calcification, which is not correct. It's not calcium that's building up on the fine spray.
Chris Real, as attention, Chris Real, pay attention to this, and then you can educate us on this thing, because he's a petroleum engineer.
Oh, he can chime in here.
So go ahead.
So whatever these little debris deposits are on the orifices, on the output orifice of the injector, I've seen bikes run badly. Like my bike today ran badly, and it was super indicative of a partially clogged injector. Some of those little spray, they're incredibly tiny little orifices, 16, 12 around, set in a pattern if you've ever looked at the front spray area of an injector. And so we'll pull those and clean those, and then the bike will run dramatically better, like night and day.
So, and when you clean them, you either have a tool that opens them up and you can spray cleaner through it.
Yeah.
Or it open up and you can spray cleaner backwards.
Yeah.
Through it. Which for me, I've always found I do it both ways. I usually do it backwards first, and I've done it backwards and then put it on a white cloth, and you can see
the stuff
a little bit of stuff. And if you're seeing some stuff, your bike is not running very well. In fact, I've done it on bikes that have stopped running, but it took a long time for that amount. I mean, the bike was telling you for a long time, my injector is getting plugged up.
Power and performance go away. It's almost like you're losing compression on a motor over time, so power.
Right, and it's noticeable at high RPM. We're using a lot of fuel, high RPM.
You get a bog sometimes.
And bogs on big throttle. That's how you tell your fuel injector is getting plugged. And so it takes a lot to actually see something when you back clean it and stuff. But a lot of times these cleaners can, the little stuff that's kind of building up there, like you said, calcification, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It takes some of that stuff away, whatever it's doing to clean it. And I talked to the Chevron engineers in a previous podcast. I explained as much as I could, and I'll call it Jimmy terms, which is just like layman's terms.
Jimmy jive.
What they had told me, and it all made sense, and I've seen it work, and I have a fleet of rental bikes, and so a lot of them sit for a long time, and intermittently some of my bikes sit for a long time, and since I've been putting that stuff, that I would like to say the name again, but I'm not going to give it to you. Who's laughing over there? since I've been putting that stuff in there, I had really good results. So if you have some stuff that's better than that, you should send it to me, and then we can talk about how I can talk about it too. So I'm a whore today.
Let me jump in and say two things about this guy with the Yamaha. So Yamaha has some pre-made apps that you can go on their website and download, and then you can upload those into your bike on the phone. I know that they may be trying to, there'll be more out for the 20s, but the previous versions of the Yamaha Power Tune app, you can basically custom tune, get custom maps that Yamaha's developed, and then you could load those into your bike.
Yeah, each bike has a couple of
and they'll name them. There's like the Chad Reed map, and there's different ones
on their website.
Yeah, the Yamaha. Yeah.
Huh. I know they have one that's like low power, or high power or freer revving, and they have like usually when we go to an intro, they give us 3 or 4 that they've developed that they kind of want us to tell people about.
Try out.
And then we can share them, but they also have some that are on, kind of built into the app, they have some that are like drivability or
templates, basically.
Yeah. And it's a great place to start, but I don't think they have one that says better starting. There's no way that bike I promise you that Yamaha is selling a bike that in their opinion starts perfect.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So, but depending on your conditions and stuff like that,
it's a 20, so he's probably not got a clogged injector.
No, unless he got bad gas.
He could have bad gas.
Bad gas can do that. You get you get some water in the gas. He could be in a humid environment, and his tank was hot once, and then everything got warm, and then it sucked in some moisture and washed it. Who knows? Lots of stuff that could go on. So that's our one question. That's it. We can get through some of the other questions. A lot of people want me to talk about the Dakar 2020, and we don't really talk a whole lot about racing on this show. There's a lot of shows that do a really good job about talking about racing and stuff, and I would love to talk about it, and because it's kind of really timely. And this is hopefully we're dropping a lot of information that isn't so timely. Maybe a little bit about the bikes, but when we start talking about bikes, you're going to learn something that's going to apply. We just talked about a Yamaha, but what we just said about the Yamaha, aside from the app, unless you have a Get Tuner,
like injector, that applies.
Injector applies to any fuel injected bike. Some people in the room are really loving carburetors.
Old school.
Some of you old guys that love carburetors. Yeah. I want you to come over and clean all my carburetors because I hate them. I like putting that stuff that I talked about into a gas tank, and it cleans it for me. And my fingers, they're not very pretty, but they don't get any worse. So,
do you think that this is a good attitude if you've got car bikes and you're going to store them? Do you think like this particular
anything that you're storing? Yeah, that's good.
This is a good one. Or ethanol free.
Yeah. So, a question from the Peanut Gallery.
Ethanol is hygroscopic, so no matter what you do, where you go, it's absorbing water.
Ethanol is hygroscopic and it's absorbing water. This is correct. Yeah. And so it's funny because if you have water in your gas tank, ethanol gas can actually clean the water out of your gas tank. But at certain temperatures, it kind of starts separating, and then it can drag deposits in other places.
It's cleaning. So it's always cleaning from the refinery to your tank.
Yeah. So it can clean out the water in the refinery, or in your gas stations. It can clean the water out of the gas station gas tank and deliver it into your gas tank and crud.
Right. So when the ethanol and the oxygen in the air get together with the water, then it starts corroding everything.
Yeah, ethanol and water are bad combo. Yeah. Yep. If you're using it all the time, if you're constantly using your bike and stuff like that, the ethanol is not as bad. Right. Because it's working. It's what is it? A solvent, right? Yeah. Essentially, yeah. So
it's alcohol, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to have an expert come in here, but it's ethanol free gas is better because especially if your bike is sitting, right. Yeah, for any period of time, but yeah. Where were we? What was my next thing? Oh, I was talking about racing.
Dakar.
How do we get there? Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. It's going good. It's really going good. Dakar is going good. It's awesome. Do
you wish you were there?
I've been watching the videos and I see the scenery in Saudi, and it reminds me a lot of Africa, the beautiful places in Africa. I mean, they always put the cameras up in the best places, and trust me, there was days I rode for 3 days in Africa and I never wanted to see any more Africa. But there was sections of it, and like I remember this one stage we were riding along the Niger River in Niger, and it was pink sand and big red rocks coming out of the sand with green, next to the river, green. It was like one of those, if you have that dream where you're ripping through the desert on sand and sand dunes and just there's never anything dangerous. We were riding on that. I rode in that for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I was just like unbelievable. Some of the stuff I see in Saudi Arabia, it looks like that, but I've also heard that it's very rocky and pretty gnarly as much as it's pretty. So do I wish I was there? Kinda, but I don't want to race. I would love to go ride there.
Would you want to like manage a team?
No. Manage racers? Are you kidding? Other people do
manage
that.
you managing you?
No, no, not possible. But hopefully, I'll have some really good news by the next time we're on the show, and maybe I know this guy. Maybe this guy will come and hang out with me soon. So, where's George? George is on the internets. He's not getting. I think he was getting a haircut during our last show, and so he's not there. Hey, if you think I'm full of crap here, you can go listen to me on Adventure Rider Radio every once in a while. So if you're more on the Adventure Rider spectrum and you listen to some of the stuff that I talk about here, they actually kind of corral me. They put a choke chain on me. And I talk about kind of cool adventure riding subjects every once in a while over on Adventure Rider Radio. So that's a plug. It's actually a really popular podcast if that's your thing. You have a question for me yet?
Me?
Yeah.
Should we launch any of these?
No, I'm going to do one more thing.
Oh.
But I just want to make sure you're ready.
I'll be ready when you are.
Over on Dirt Bike Test, that's the website that makes this all possible. Trevor Hunter, who's like our Cub reporter, I think his dad possibly is on the in the chat room right now. Trevor raced the Best in the Desert Parker 250. Finished third overall, has a pretty cool race story up there where he tells you how his day went, how he managed to finish that thing without a bolt on his countershaft sprocket.
Ooh, I read that. Shameless plug.
Yeah. So I'm blaming the dads that were involved in prepping that bike because, So Craig, put Loctite on that stuff. Pay attention to it. And good thing those kids finished. At least he didn't knock a donkey off down there. If you want to see a cool video, search Dirt Bike Test for running over a donkey in the Nevada desert at 90 miles an hour. So there's all of our old Tech Talk Taco Tuesday episodes are up there, and every once in a while you'll find a bike test. Gabe, how's that Honda CRF 250 rally test podcast coming? It's in progress because we're launching a new podcast. It's called the Dirt Bike Test Podcast, where we test a dirt bike and talk about it. And we actually put one in the banks, and now we need our professional slave, young kid that edits this stuff to break it down into all of its components and put it up on the internet. Okay, question number one. What's the best question you have there?
Dude, I don't know if it's best, but it's a segue right out of here. So KTM countershaft sprockets, we've had quite a few questions, and then I've seen a post about a broken bolt. So maybe we could talk about the bolt, tightening the bolt, Loctite, and then the dome washer. This is KTM specific.
Yeah. I have snapped one off before.
Taking it out or putting it in?
No, putting it in.
Putting it in.
Using an impact driver.
Oh.
Yeah, going like, hey, look.
That was when you were young.
No, it wasn't a couple years ago. But it was that thing was probably compromised from being on and off 3 or 4 times.
Been used before.
Yeah, and I have a kind of like I have a butt dyno. I have a wrist torque wrench as well.
Okay.
And it works not only when I'm turning the wrench, I can also hold an impact driver and go and I see the really good mechanics, the guys that do it the way you're supposed to do it. I see those guys cringe anytime I pick up an impact driver and it's in the drive mode. Like on the release mode, they're usually not too concerned. I can take stuff off with it, but the minute I start screwing stuff back in, they're like, ah, and that's
For
the
good
sign,
reason, apparently.
That's the sign of a really good mechanic, which I'm not. But my stuff works. I mean, like I said, I've snapped one off out of how many KTMs do you see out in that garage?
Yeah.
A lot of them.
15.
So I probably hit it a little bit too hard, and so I have snapped one off. They do use a pretty aggressive Loctite in those things, and depending on how long it's been in there and lots of stuff like that, you might have to be delicate with getting it off. The thing is, with the impact driver, I just run in there, and when I go to take it off, generally it goes grrr, and it comes out. You know, it might grind for a little ways on the way out, but it comes out. But then I clean it off. Then I use the Loctite. You know, I use a medium, like a 2 instead of the blue. Yeah, the blue one, not the high temperature stuff.
It comes with red, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it's red that's in there. Yeah, but there's different levels. There's like, have you ever looked at a Loctite spreadsheet? You know, a document that talks about all the different kinds. There's a kind for everything.
There's tons.
The KTM legal department dictates.
Yeah,
The
because
red.
they don't want it to come off like it did to Trevor, because that could end your race or catastrophically do something bad, and you'd be in trouble. Ending your race is not a big deal in their world.
So I know guys who will wire wheel off the red and then use something more mild, like a green or a blue. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I've been using blue forever, and I haven't had any problems with it. Sometimes I don't clean. If it comes out pretty nice, I'll put the blue right on top of the red and run it right back in there. And they stay in there. They don't have to. I mean, if you run a good sprocket like a DDC, by the way, you don't have to change them that much.
Long-lasting sprockets.
Actually, my countershafts wear out quite a bit quicker than my rear DDCs. But then you have to think about, I ride a Husaberg 570. Do you know that?
Has a lot of power.
It has a lot of power. Yeah, and that thing that I'm lucky that the countershaft sprocket splines don't just get ripped off that thing.
Eat right off.
Yeah. So.
What about dome washers? So you've got the stock one, or like Dirt Tricks makes their
special
one.
Yeah.
Kryptonite.
I've when I had those things, I ran quite a few of them, and I haven't had any problems either way. It's just most of the times the problems I see, and I've bought used bikes off of guys, and they don't line them up properly, and then
there is a shoulder on that bolt.
There's a shoulder on the bolt, yeah, and then they don't, and then they run it in there. So anytime I've seen a failure on that washer, it had to do with improper installation.
Yeah, agreed.
Never. It didn't. The washer didn't need to be any better if it was properly Loctited and stuff like that. But I'm sure they have a proper torque spec and all the stuff you can do it properly. But I got a really good wrist that just goes like that. I think the guys at Team Green taught me that. Not Spencer specifically, but maybe not Dave Chase. Maybe, yeah, I know he learned after that. I think he came from that. But I think his wrist got slapped enough times to where, because he used to just cringe at me anytime I picked up tools, anyways.
How about throwing a little paint dot on the bolt and then on the sprocket as a reference to see if that bolt ever starts to back off versus putting it. I've seen people put them on the bolt and on the washer.
I take my yellow paint pen and I run it on the bolt, on the washer, and out to the sprocket, and that will work, and that will show you what's happening.
Now the washer will spin, so that paint reference is going to change. But
it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. It absolutely often does.
It absolutely should not spin.
It should not, but sometimes it can. So
it's not tight enough, then it will spin.
Fair enough.
No, they improperly heat treated spring steel.
Yeah.
Improperly heat treated spring steel, but
KTM dome washers are junk for the last 3 years.
Oh, really? We got someone in the peanut gallery that's claiming the KTM spring washers are junk for the last 3 years. That's a definitive statement. And you fly airplanes, right?
I try to.
You try to. Well, you're doing pretty good if you're still here, because trying and flying are two different things. Yes, Bob.
The dome just puts preload on the bolt.
Preload against the O-ring and against the.
But if the bolt's tight, okay. If the bolt's tight, that preload should be kind of insignificant. I mean, really, the amount of preload coming off that washer.
It's cup.
Yeah, we know it's cup, but I mean, you think
With the heat treatment, it flattens out and it gets loose.
with the heat treatment.
That's why that paint dot moves.
Yeah, so you really want the dot on the bolt and the sprocket, because you need to check the sprocket never turns in relation to the bolt. So if you dot the bolt and then the sprocket somewhere where the tooth of where the chain won't wear it off, then you'll have like a true reference. And if
Okay.
if that changes, then you're losing.
Yeah, if
the bolt.
that washer is bad, it will spin, and then it's bad. I haven't seen it spin on any of the bikes that I've had, and I've had a few new ones and old ones, and so who knows? If it was really bad, you would see a recall on it.
Exactly. So when you tighten the bolt, you're tightening it up against the output shaft, not the cup washer.
Yeah, the washer is like kind of a secondary kind of thing.
So if you use blue Loctite and torque it, the torque's in the owner's manual, then you'll never
Yeah.
have a problem.
That's what I would think too. Yeah, if you do it properly, and I do it properly with my impact driver, by 20 out of 30, 40, 49 out of 50 bikes have had 100% success. Okay.
All right.
Next question.
What do you think is the best product in 2020? Accessory, bike, mod. What do you think is?
We're on the 14th of January.
Yeah.
And since the best product, great segue. The Climb
wow.
F3 helmet that I just got. Feel how light that thing is, by the way.
Holy crap. That is
Yeah.
very light.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't
May
know.
not be 2 pounds.
Were you talking about bike specific stuff?
Just anything.
I think you should put a better rider on your motorcycle.
Oh, is this a shameless plug?
Probably. I mean, who else is
right
going
there.
to sponsor this mediocre podcast? You can bring whatever's inside of that over here. Yeah. The best product, if you're going to ask me about the best product of 2019, I'd be much more equipped to answer that.
Yeah,
But
let's
like
stop.
2020. So in 2019, what was the thing I was most impressed with? Give me some time to think about that. I will come back to something will come across. Gabe, what did I talk about the most besides my Husaberg 570, which is from 2008? Huh? The KTM 500? Yeah, probably. Okay.
Should we jump into the KTM 500 because we have some of that here?
Well, no, just run down whatever. Yeah, you're in charge of the questions.
Okay.
Because evidently I don't do a very good job.
You do a great job. The audience is spoken here. The new KTM model. What is the one that was just released? There's a small 390 adventure bike. Do we have any info on that? We've had some questions about that one.
Don't know anything about it.
Is that the right size? 390.
390 is the right size.
Yeah.
It's a single cylinder. It's going to be kind of like an entry level adventure bike. I don't think it's been released, but they have released the 390 Duke. But that has street tires on it, so I don't pay attention. So you can get an idea about the performance there. They'll tune it a little bit more for adventure riding. I've heard from people that have ridden it, although I don't know anything about it, that it is a really good dirt bike. It's a really good entry-level dirt bike. Kind of like a Honda CRF 250L, right, Gabe? Yeah. So that's a really good entry-level dirt bike also. Yeah, I don't, it's not going to be a competition thing. It's going to be more along the adventure side of the market. So that's all I know.
That's what we know. Okay. So along adventure, navigation, hardware, apps. What do you guys use in rallies? And is any of that crossover to guys who are doing, for example, maybe say the Tour of Idaho or some BDR type routes?
So in rally navigation, the equipment is very, very specific for the job. It's a map book holder. So it's a couple wheels that scroll a printed map book. It's like a dual sport roll chart. If you remember what those are, if that makes sense to you, it gives you a mileage, the mileage you're at. It tells you what to do with a picture. Like there's a graphical picture description of what you're seeing on the ground. Like imagine you're coming to a T intersection at an intersection. It would show the line you're on, which is the one that's straight in front of you, and the road going 90 degrees in front of you, a T intersection, and that's what you would see. And then over on the other side, there's some notes that explain that maybe it's going to tell you the direction that you'll be heading when you leave it, or the speed limit that in the village you're in, or it'll talk about you're going to be on a paved road or there's going to be no road. or there's a lot of information. So that's the paper that's scrolling. As far as GPS, those bikes, they have a GPS unit that tells the organization where the rider is. It doesn't show the rider where he's at.
So those guys are not using any screen with any GPS.
There's nothing
info.
that would be like a typical GPS. What the GPS does do is it tells them the direction they're heading. It's like a compass all the time. So it tells them, and we call it cap heading, CAP, cap heading, and that's the direction you're pointing. Like right now, and this is because I'm kind of weird like this. I know that I'm pointing at 72 degrees when I go like this. This is 72.
Is that straight east?
No. Straight east is 90. That's right here.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but you're right here to my 0 or my 360. So when if I looked at a map and all of a sudden it said that the road was going 180, I would know with 100% certainty that it was going this way. And so there's digital instrumentation on your bike that tells you this, or it tells you what direction you're pointing. But you should also, as a rider, know which, just like I'm doing right here, sitting here telling you, because I feel it, I know where it's at, and that's high level rally training stuff. But anyways, in reality, you're following a map book that gives you very specific instructions on what to do while you're trying to ride fast. So it's difficult. The GPS and all that stuff, it's mostly tracking the riders. It does stuff like if another vehicle comes close to you, they can beep at you, and your unit will emit a beep. It has a safety thing in it. You push safety, and it also tracks to make sure that you go through the waypoint, so you don't miss, or you can miss a waypoint. You get penalized
like virtual
for it.
waypoints.
Virtual checkpoints to make sure you're staying on the course, so the organization kind of see that, and then it helps with scoring, so that we can all watch on the different apps and stuff that they use. So. That's the navigation, but in reality, it has nothing to do. It's not like a GPS unit, like a Trail Tech Voyager Pro, for instance, that has really beautiful maps that are inside of it, and you could load track logs into it, and you can keep your arrow on the track log and follow the track log. And that's a different skill set entirely. That's the kind of skill set you use at an extreme enduro like King of the Motos or Romaniacs or Roof of Africa. You run a GPS unit just like you would on some dual sport rides now. Instead of giving you a roll chart or a map book, whatever, they give you a track log, and you just keep your little arrow on the little line and follow the route. So it's quite a bit different, but the equipment that they're using is very specific to the task.
Do you have any recommendations on some of that equipment for like BDR and the Tour of Idaho kind of rides? You
So-
mentioned the Voyager Pro.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of the Trail Tech stuff. It's motorcycle specific GPS units. So Garmin makes GPS units. They make all different kinds. Like I had a GPS unit on my wrist, but it also tracked my heart rate and some other stuff today when I was riding. But so like there's different, there's Magellan, and there's what's the one all the off-road racers use typically, Lowrance. That's so Lowrance, and then there's all kinds of apps. People use Ride Leader and Lead Nav and all these different. There's just
Motion
so
X,
much.
I think I've seen.
Motion X is for 99 cents. You can have a GPS unit that's basically as good as almost anything you can buy in a hard unit, a specific unit. But it kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish. You run Motion X on your iPhone, your battery's going to run out in 4 hours. And so then you have to find a source for your iPhone, and maybe you don't really want to have your iPhone on your handlebars. But so when I did Tour of Idaho, I used 2 Voyager GPS units, and it's funny because I heard there's a rumor that I might be riding the King of the Motos this year, and I will run 2 Voyager GPS units because it's what I've practiced with. That's what I understand how it works, and not the Voyager Pros either.
The original ones.
The original
Voyager
ones, because they're very simple. I keep my arrow on the line. I don't need maps, because especially when I'm at King of the Hammers or out in Johnson Valley, I know every trail there anyways. I just need to know which one I'm supposed to be on, so I keep my arrow on it. And the reason I run 2 is double. One, I run them in different zoom levels. So imagine one zoomed up really close so I can see what I'm supposed to be doing right in front of me, from here to that wall and just outside the door.
Okay.
And then I have one that zoomed out so I can say, hey, look, up here I'm going to go, in 2,000 meters or whatever it is, 2,000 feet, whatever that scaling is. it shows that I'm going to go turn. Like right now, just my one that zoomed close shows me going straight, but my one that zoomed out shows me turn. So I know, okay, I'm right on top of the one that's close, but the one that's far away, I can look out 2,000 feet and see, oh, hey, that canyon goes and turns up there. I know where I'm going to go. So I run them at 2 different zoom levels. And additionally, if I have an issue with one, I have a backup unit also. So that's in those circumstances, both Tour of Idaho and in racing something like King of the Motos, I would run 2 for those particular reasons. And the reason I say that the Trail Took ones are good is because you can monitor your engine temperature. It'll show you, it has a tachometer, show you RPM. There's stuff where it does some bike monitoring things. It can show you the voltage that your bike's putting out. You know, so if you're running other things like headlight, your fans coming on and off, you can see whether you're discharging or doing things like that. So,
I have a question about that. Somebody asked earlier on, what alarm alert temperatures would you set those little? You got a yellow light and a
yellow
red light
and
that
red
come on?
on the Voyager, and Voyager Pro does it as well. And then let's talk about the thermostat also, because we had that question
Thermostat
coming from that
bypass
thing.
was something.
But anyways, so I set mine at 170 for yellow. Well, see, it's funny. You can have 4 levels. You can have the light blink. You have a light come on, and then you can make it blink. So I would set my yellow one to come on at 170. I would set my red one to come on at 200. I'd get my yellow one to blink at 210, and I'd have my red one blink at 240, which is 240 is kind of like
you're boiling over.
In my world, that's when your bike's not cooling back down. Like it's always up in 170 is pretty, like usually 180, 190 is like where I see the bike a lot of the time. And then it starts going up into 200. Yeah, you should probably stressing it. Generally, it's like, Jimmy, what are you doing with the clutch? And then when you start getting up to 240, that's when you start seeing steam in my world.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to really look at the number. I just don't want it to be there. And so when it's there, I start adjusting how I'm operating the motorcycle. If I have a clutch, because generally that's where the heat's coming from, I'm very careful about at that point. It's like, hey, I need to quit using this thing, quit generating extra heat, because when you're building up heat with the clutch, all your cooling system, which is up in your top end, isn't doing much for that oil that's basically trying to boil down in the bottom end. You don't have cooling channels down in your bottom end.
Yeah, there's no oil cooler on typical bikes.
Yeah, you don't have an oil cooler, and it takes that oil to go up through your top end to circulate where there's other cool stuff to cool down. So you're actually cooling your oil down with your
hot water,
with your cooling system, and so it just when we're talking about setting it, that's telling me, hey, look, quit doing something that's wrong, or shut it down and let it cool. Which a lot of times that hot stuff that's actually probably hotter than what your coolant temperature is, believe it or not, is the heat's gonna bleed up in. All of a sudden your cylinder, your top end is actually cooler than what your bottom end is. That clutch is on fire. The clutch is like glowing red hot, and the oil's going through it, and then the oil's transferring the heat
up in
around the rest of the motor. That's what I found with most things that are boiling over. It's rarely that you're like riding your bike and you're not using your clutch in it. I've rarely seen a bike just being ridden overheat. I can see one just sitting there idling overheating, but generally it takes clutch heat to make it go bad. So, but yeah, back to the sensors. When it's at 240 and blinking red, all the lights both of them are blinking. It's like, yeah,
that's like full alert.
Yeah, stop doing something stupid. Then your gas starts boiling and all kinds of stuff happens.
So back to the GPS, do you have a recommendation of, say, the Voyager Pro versus Garmin Montana, or is there a phone? Is a phone with an app now really the next the next generation of navigation? It's
the least expensive way to get it, but how expensive is that phone you're strapping on your handlebars?
If it's your iPhone X,
it's a $900 piece.
$1,000.
It's a $900 piece of equipment that you're putting up there, as opposed to, I think in the Voyager thing, it's you're talking about maybe a $600 piece, the $350 piece, the standard Voyager. But it's really how much you're going to use it, and what are you using it for, and I can run Motion X. If I want to track myself, I'll run Motion X in my backpack or in my pocket where I carry my phone most of the time. But I can't really quote use it to do what I want to do unless I mount it up there with some kind of a mount. and then what case am I using? How safe is it? It's just a personal choice. You just got to decide.
Okay. Let's jump over to the heat. In terms of the clutch, we had a question about whether or not a rider operating the clutch manually, so a standard manual clutch versus a Rekluse on a bike, and then when we talk about Rekluse, standard like 3.0 model versus the CX with their steel friction plates. Let's talk about that.
So I've run a bunch of different Rekluses, and I have in most of my personal bikes, and it's funny because I'm really picky about the setting. Like, I don't like their standard, whatever Rekluse is their standard setting, because like I think yours is pretty. It felt like standard to me.
By the book.
Yeah, for me, it engages too late. The bike revs up a little bit too, and it disengages too quick. I want that thing to drag. Like when I put the bike in gear, I literally want to have to hold my rear brake lever. I don't want to touch the clutch lever, but I want to hold the rear brake lever so the bike creeps.
Yeah.
Because at that point, also, if I'm riding up a hill and I let off the throttle and I stop,
engine braking.
it will up the hill. It doesn't want to roll backwards. Just the engine idling. And I set my engine idle maybe just a tad higher than most people, which eliminates some compression braking and eliminates the Rekluse from releasing on a downhill. Like if I lock it up, when I let up the brake, the clutch is still engaged. But if on your bike, like when I was riding yours today, I locked up the rear brake, I let off the rear brake, and it rolled. I'm like, whoa!
No engine brake right there.
I had to turn the gas back on. So, there's a lot that goes into setting those things up, and the way that I like it set up doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that you're going to like it set up. Most people don't like their clutch to quote drag and do that kind of stuff, but for the kind of riding I do, it's different. And the only people that I know that really hate Rekluse clutches are people that didn't give them a chance. They didn't actually go out and just say, I'm going to honestly give this thing a chance. Because the funny thing is, you can have a Rekluse in your bike and your bike won't stall, and you can just pretend like you have a regular clutch in there. You can ride your bike the same way you've been riding it for your entire life, and you would probably never even know a difference. When I took off in your bike, I took off like I didn't know it had a Rekluse in it.
Yeah.
I just took off, and I started rolling away, and I just let the clutch out, and then I pushed on the brake, and I said, "Oh, this has a Rekluse in it."
Because the rear end didn't start to bog down on you.
Yeah, it was like it just didn't stall. I'm like, "Oh, it has a Rekluse," So I knew the test, but I could have just taken off in your bike, and I wouldn't have known. Because when I hopped on it, I pulled in the clutch, put it in gear, and like took off like normal, and it was like normal. And I'm like, "Wonder if this has a Rekluse," And then I just let the clutch out, and I started dragging the brake, and it didn't stall.
Sure enough, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Okay, good. So that said, that's why I always say that people say, I don't want one of those things. Put it in there and just use it like a normal clutch, and then you just will stall a lot less, or you'll quit using the clutch. And here's where the learning comes in. People that have started riding with a Rekluse, all of a sudden, because you listen to a regular guy ride, and they won't let the bike go down below 2,000 RPM. They're all that slipping we're talking about, the heat generation and slipping. They don't trust the torque of the motorcycle. And when you start riding a Rekluse, you go, hey, my bike will idle. It'll go low. It pulls from here. It gets lower and lower.
Yeah.
It gets torquey.
You'll hear the motor. You'll hear the difference between somebody who's riding on the Rekluse and riding on their clutch and slipping their clutch.
All of a sudden, you on your Rekluse sound like Graham Jarvis. That's hard to do. I mean, that is a like that. The level of skill. He does not use a Rekluse, as far as I know. He may. He
does not.
Yeah, most of the extreme enduro guys do not like running the Rekluse for a couple reasons. I'll talk about this in a second, but. Because they want ultimate control over it, and they use it in other ways. But you listen to the way that they ride. That's the way the Rekluse actually works. It engages the clutch when it needs to, and it puts the power, it delivers the power, and you can change it based on the setting. Different springs, different wedges, stuff like that. On dirtbiketest.com, by the way, you can search it out. We have a Rekluse setting article up there that's relatively informative. Anyways, it's really good. So back to the EXP, the standard EXP, which now they're on level 3, which is a Teflon slider wedge inside of the EXP disc versus before it was ball bearings. And then I don't even remember what the original EXP one was. I think it was ball bearings, but it was different.
The Z, they call them the Z Start Pro.
Well, that's all ball bearings
Yep.
on a almost a diaphragm spring looking thing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So EXP3 is really good. I actually just pulled a couple of EXP2s out of bikes that had 400 hours on them because I needed to upgrade them. They weren't engaging as well. And so I upgraded them like, man, what a difference. So just from 2 to 3 made a noticeable difference in just the way they engage. But when you go from EXP to their full kit, which I think it's called CX. And this is on the hydraulic clutches, or CX on the cable clutches allows the clutch lever to work like a normal clutch lever. If you just have the EXP, the clutch lever kind of is vague and it's moving around a lot. The CX on the cable clutches does something to where it allows the lever feel to stay consistent, but they also add all of their own plates, which are thinner. They're more like KTM clutch plates of all things, compared to like a standard fiber out of a Honda or a Yamaha. They're metallic and they're thinner, and they pack more plates into the clutch pack. Or the same amount while using their EXP disc, which is kind of thick. It's a centimeter and a half or something thick. So they take plates out to fit it in there, but now you get the number of plates back in, and that's coefficient of friction. There's plates, certain amount of grab, and on certain bikes it does make a big difference in just the way that the clutch feels and engages. I think you have some information on how hot they run or how hot they don't run. I've just found that every level that you pay more for with Rekluse, you're getting a little bit better performance. There's another jump in performance. Will you notice it? On some bikes, absolutely yes, you will. KTM 350, you want to run the CX. KTM 500 doesn't seem to care. So, and then on the Honda, same thing. Every level we went up, we took, we just replaced we put the CX discs, or the, what do they call it? Drive pack. What do they call their
torque pack?
Torque drive clutch. So we just replaced the Honda plates with a torque drive, and that clutch is not the best clutch. We just put that in there, and it made it better.
Bike feels more powerful.
Yeah.
So I swapped out the clutch pack, a stock clutch pack on a Honda, and it just felt like there was more power because the clutch grabbed better, had more authority to the grab. And it just felt like a bit of a horsepower boost. Less slip, less slippage.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's funny because you're calling that more power, and there's no difference in power.
There's no difference in power.
It's what you're feeling.
Yes.
And
more drive, more acceleration.
And funny to talk, roll us back to Yamaha thing. When you like Yamaha, the difference between like a YZ and a YZFX and a WR in the clutch, it's all the same parts. They mix and match the clutch plates in those. And they do.
They get intentionally, don't they?
Intentionally, because it's a different kind of a feel. It's a feel at the lever. It's a feel in the way the power is delivered, and this is kind of stuff that people just don't even think about. It's like, just give me the best clutch. Well, what do you want? Do you want less bite? You felt the bite that the torque drive gave the Honda, and you felt more power.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about the same thing, but you called it one thing, and somebody else would call it something different. And I just got better feel out of the Honda. I didn't feel any more power, but it's kind of it depends on how you're using your clutch and stuff like that. So there's in reality, that's hopefully why we're doing stuff like this show, to explain this stuff that maybe somebody didn't realize these things, and that there's some place you can go that says, hey, these are these different levels of things you can do, and here's what they do. And if you ask a specific question, hopefully I can answer that question. You can answer that question. We can answer that question. And you can make a informed purchasing, buying decision based on, something like that. And it's funny, like do you want to use your clutch to get more power? You would say, yeah, baby. Yeah.
I liked it. Felt better. I noticed in my personal experience by running the CX pack, so that's their steels versus say the aluminum of the stock pack, say on KTM's, we see that bikes run cooler in technical situations when they're running a Rekluse, and then even cooler still when they're running the CX pack versus, say, like the 3.0 pack, which uses the stock plates. So that's been my experience. Have you seen that as well?
I did. No, I did a really extensive test with, and what we got to get to your question about the eliminating the thing. I was wondering what I did. I did a really big test on cooling systems, and it was using a Boysen impeller and their thing, and then some different
Full Boysen versus
cool stuff. Yeah, different things, but we'll get to that later. But I haven't done that with clutches. But I will, for 100%, with 100% certainty, I will tell you that if you're running a Rekluse clutch, that as long as you're not abusing the clutch, in other words, you're in the right, or you're abusing the bike, you're in the right gear, you're riding the Rekluse in the exact same gear as you would ride with a manual clutch, the Rekluse will run cooler. The bike engine will run cooler.
Yes. That's 100% what we experienced too.
Yeah. Going between the different clutch packs and stuff, I've never noticed a significant temperature difference. I've noticed a performance difference, and just in the engagement, the feel. But it's on certain bikes, and the KTM 350 is probably the perfect example of that. I suspect the 250, because it's a very similar engine. The 500, like I said, didn't seem to care so much. I've run in one bike, I had a full, the full CX setup, and the other one I just had the drop-in, EXP disc, and they both seem to work pretty much the same. And I don't ever think I really abused them to the level to see if there was something at the high end when you really got them hot. But yeah.
Did we want to cover dampers on that?
Well, let's talk about eliminating your thermostat.
Jump to that.
That came up because we're talking about like heat and stuff like that. My experience. This is just me. I have some bikes that have it taken out, and I have bikes that it is still in. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I don't know that it's in there. It as long as it's functioning properly. I saw no difference in how the bike cooled. It did warm up quicker. That was for sure.
With it.
It got to normal operating temperatures, and for the most part, during most of the year out here, it wasn't an issue. So on the bikes that I've removed it on, bikes don't warm up as quickly, but usually that's like a minute or, a minute, maybe a minute and a half more in time, kind of depending on how I'm riding them. And then if it's really, really cold outside, the bike doesn't totally warm up for a long time. Yeah. It takes a long time for that motor to get hot. So in other words, the oil has to warm up, and it just never gets up there. Bob, yes, hello. Raise your hand.
If you're just cruising down a dirt road,
yes,
it runs really cold without the thermostat.
It'll cool. Yeah, it'll cool the bike down quite a bit.
Cold to the point of it's got to be running off the end of the lookup table.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm sure they have. Yeah, as far as inside the ECUs and stuff like that, I mean, it's probably outside of the parameters where it's ordinarily supposed to use. I don't think it's like going to necessarily cold seize. Like on the two strokes, we'd be worried about that. And they have them on the two strokes, and I guess you could cold seize them a little bit easier on those bikes but I wouldn't take it out for the sake of like, oh, this is a performance modification. If you're trying to simplify your hose routing or do something like that. And I have never had on the KTM specifically, and I've had some experience with them on some of the newer Honda stuff. I've yet to have a failure with the thermostat. I've known some guys that have got them so hot to, where they were boiling the crap out of them and some of the connections and stuff in that thermostat thing, but they were way above where they should have been anyways. They've had issues with the all the plastic, the fittings and things like that.
Yeah. So all the guys who say like throw a Boysen on and get rid of the thermostat and do a bypass hose, all of that, you're just saying that ends up kind of being bling essentially.
In this test, and I was because Boysen was real interested in wanting to do some stuff. They wanted some tests that proved what their stuff does. And
we're certainly not picking on Boysen.
No, absolutely not. No, and that's the thing. It has to be part of a system. If you are going to increase the flow with this much more efficient impeller and impeller pump cover, you'd better do something to your radiators as well, because your radiators are in what I could tell is when I did all this testing, I saw maybe like we were doing a loop of kind of like an extreme enduro where it was stuff where you would just barely get the bike boiling and then have a road to cool off on, ride another section, get the bike to boil, cool off, and it was heat cycles and stuff, some hill climbs.
Okay.
And so it was and I ran the bike around and I carried the Boysen and the stock one in my fanny pack and would switch it and do it and did this test and you saw the differences because I used the Trail Tech Voyager. It shows your temperature. It shows your temperature and it also showed my track log and it showed the temperature at each point in the track log. So I could look at each point. So I could look at the extreme enduro section and see the temperature rise and temperature rise. It rose exactly the same on both bikes and stuff like that. And then you get to the top and you start going down the road and the Boysen one cooled just a teeny tiny little bit quicker, but never to any significant. There was never any significance about it. So then we put bigger radiators on the bike. And so we did the exact same test. And all of a sudden, the bike the entire time ran X amount cooler.
To the same degree.
It didn't.
To the same vector with the stock pump and the Boysen pump.
Correct.
They tracked
the temperature was
everything
actually,
just dropped. Oh.
What?
Pass the
Mike,
tequila,
that's a mic drop. No, you can't have any.
Oh.
You're cut off at that point. We got to get to the tequila. Don, hey, hold on. What's the tequila tonight? Anybody want to guess? I said the purse part. We'll get in it. Go ahead and guess. Actually, I'm losing track on the thing here. We'll get back to it. Hey, guess what? Kurt Heinz was responsible for the countershaft sprocket on Trevor Hunter's bike. Imagine that. Yeah. Hey, Kurt. Thanks for those beers that one time on the side of the hill when you got stuck. Should I tell this story? Probably. We're gonna get back to the cooling systems because Kurt was overheating on the side of a hill. So there was a trail ride that we were going on, and Kurt likes to transport beers for everybody at the end of the trail ride, of course. So he had a backpack full of beers, and it was almost like a beer dispenser of sorts. And there was this one long uphill and lots of different lines and stuff. And he rode up there and got stuck, and he was stuck, and he was pushing his bike. And I rode up right next to him and stopped. He dispensed a beer to me. I took it and I rode away, and it was awesome. That was the last beer. Yeah. Oh, he was on empty at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, he had the last beer
I got
and you drove off and
got
left him.
got to left him there. Yeah. Good job. Yeah. So. Okay, back to the cooling system thing. So
peanut gallery.
We'll get there. If you are running a bike that's running at like 10 tenths, so you're running a 250F in an outdoor motocross at a sand track, you're probably going to want to increase the cooling capacity of the motorcycle because it's at that point the rider's probably using the clutch, but the bike's running full sing and it gets to the point where it needs to dissipate heat better. If you put better radiators on and you don't, because the KTM 350 I was doing, it was never taxing. It was getting close to boiling, but once I got it moving again, it would cool down. And if I just set it in, if I just kept it in the extreme enduro section, it would boil over. It needed to have airflow going through, and then we started.
Obviously, you had the fan, stock fan. Oh, you didn't have a fan.
No, I didn't have a fan. But that was the next level. So then we put a fan on. The fan changed everything. In the slow speed non-moving section, fan made no difference when the bike was working. We also put different louvered radiators. Louvered ones, the stock ones versus a wire mesh versus a
whatever.
Yep. There's definitely a difference there, depending on the speed the bike was moving. The fan kind of was the best thing you could do, especially if you're keeping the bike up going slow using your clutch. But if you're running your bike fully taxed out like a motocross bike, it's actually moving, fan's not going to do a whole lot there. At that point, it's controlling the airflow through the radiators, and hopefully you have enough radiator space to dissipate it. But at that point, if you have really good radiators and your impeller isn't that good, you've got to you need to upgrade each part. It's part of a system, kind of like when we talk about these ECUs and stuff like that. It's like you're going to modify your exhaust. You're going to have to do something to your fuel.
One change affects everything.
It absolutely does. So yes, Bob, out in the field.
On the internet.
The internet, yeah. There's it's internet. Hold on, Bob. Internet's plural. There's a lot of hoses. they go into things.
The pipeline?
It's pipelines, internets.
So
Right.
people cite pro motocrossers that do not run the thermostat, but the
Right.
pro motocrossers are running it 100% all the time, and the thermostat's of no value to them because the bike's already warmed up when they get to the
Yeah, they have a professional mechanic warm up their bike. Yeah, motocross bikes don't have thermostats because they don't necessarily need them, and they're most part they're running pretty consistent. And the reason for a thermostat is like sometimes you're riding slow, or sometimes you're going fast down a road, or we're cool, and then sometimes it needs to be wide open, and it's that's a cost added part. Okay, here's the thing you got to think about. It's like it's a cost added part. Either it's mandated because of some regulation, i.e., all the locked ECUs and different stuff like that. If they can get away with not putting a part on a motorcycle, they're not going to put it on there because it's another thing. So it evidently makes it work a little bit better. I wouldn't go out of my way to take one off, and if I had one on, I would just be aware that I don't have one on it, And if I didn't have one on, I'd be probably trying to simplify the hose routing. And I know on some of the EXCs it gets a little complicated back there, or EXCs, FEEs, or stuff like that. So yeah, turn the pressure down. Somebody tells me.
Turn the pressure on the water
no, I think he's
pump?
talking about the impact driver. It's an electric one. Hold on. So let me see if I can scroll down and see where we're at. Does the Climb Technical shirt with Proton armor offer the same protection as the hard plastic ballistic jersey? So the Climb Tactical stuff, I have some of that. That's the what's it called? Aggressor. Man, one of these days I'm going to figure out how to learn names. But so Climb makes it's like a shirt that has these pads in it. They're like D3O or some really good impact resistant stuff. I love it. Is it better? Is it as good as hard plastic? Depends on how you're going to hit the ground. It's kind of like your helmet. All these different foams and stuff like that. When I think I'm going to go, like if I go out to the sand track and try to smoke Paul Neff on my 125 while he's riding maybe a KTM 500, and I'm just on a 125, and I know I'm going to like kind of send it a little bit, I will wear that stuff. I wear the shirt and the pants just in case I bump into the ground, because it definitely takes some of the dent out of the ground. Let's see what other questions we have. Lots of old desert racers in the house here. Richard Jackson, yeah, the caveman. That's right. George, I think the Bolt has so they're still talking about the sprockets, but that's how far back I am. Let's see. They're having their own little chat in the chat room. So if you're wondering how this chat room thing works, we are typically at this point in our world, we're on Facebook live every Tuesday night at 7:00 from Pahrump. There's a chat room. People have Sam Felipe, Bob, and George Justice kind of run the chat room. Where's Victor? Victor, I got your clothes sitting here on the floor. I just need to send them, but I don't want them to get ripped off. You got to come back from Mexico one of these days. Let's see. There's Victor. Kerosene works great for me. Good God, what is he talking about?
What's reference to that to? Oh, cleaning the injector, maybe.
Oh, he leaves his bike down in Mexico, and then I get back. I just ran the kerosene out of the bowl. Yeah, so he's putting his kerosene in his float bowls.
Okay.
people do that.
Victor the Mexican. Yeah. How would the Mexican do it? Diesel. Ask Victor. Good job. I'm looking forward to the popsicle at the end of the King of the Motos, Victor. Eric Hall loves the Voyager Pro. You can see your buddies too. That is the best thing about the Voyager Pro. When we're
Buddy
talking
tracker.
buddy tracking. That's something that Garmin did it with the Rhino back in the day, but it didn't work.
Wasn't that good?
Nearly as well as the Voyager Pro things. You guys need that when you do Tour of Idaho. We have a host of Tour of Idaho questions over here in the corner, right? That's what you guys are prepping for.
No, but we needed one on Mike today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what happened today?
Oh,
Who made okay, I don't even care because I know where home is.
You know where you were.
I knew where I was and I was fine. So we rode to the end of this trail. It was all hoop-de-doos and silt and fesh and rocks. and we kind of came to this road, and me and Wayne were sitting there. He was riding in my dust the whole time, and we were sitting there, and we go, where? What, you hear anybody? I'm like, no, we'll just hang out. So we hang out for what, 15, 20 minutes? And they never came. We're like, uh-oh, what happened to Nancy? Right? Because that's what we always do. You always say, something must wrong with the girl, right? I'm mean. Oh, wait, who went the wrong way?
I was the first one to go the wrong way.
Mike?
Yeah, so it was a split. It was a Y, and I zigged, and you guys all zagged.
Yeah. Yeah, so no.
But nobody followed me.
Nobody followed you because we kind of went back and traced tracks. You know, we kind of came back and
I'm at fault. Yeah.
Al wasn't there, so he's at fault. So he anyways, so yeah, we could have used buddy tracking. That would have helped a lot. So yeah, that is the best feature of the Voyager Pro. That's what makes it special.
What's the range on that?
Depends on where you're at. In the mountains, like where we were at, in reality, and it has this kind of mesh, it works in a mesh. So in other words, if you can see one person and the other person can see all the other people, you can see all the other people.
Yeah.
But if you can't see anybody, you're not going to see anybody. It's radio frequency, but it does pretty good.
Each one acts as a transmitter and a receiver for the other signals in the group.
That it gets.
Yep.
Yeah. So it works pretty good. And I mean, as good as you can expect radios to work. I never expect radios to work, but I'm always surprised when they do. And you can see when your buddies are moving, and then your buddy can hit like a help button, and then their buddy, like, I don't know what it does, but it shows them kind of like flashing, or they're not, it sends out an alert.
Yeah.
So if you get radio signal, because we were on a road where I'm pretty sure we would have got signal from where I knew you guys ended up.
Sure.
We would have seen a ping, and it would have said, somebody could have said, hey, you push the button that, the buddy tracking alert, and it was like, uh-oh. And then, if we got that alert, we would have seen where that alert came from, and we could have just rode down the road, except that trail was pretty darn fun, riding through all the silt and hoop-de-doos and fesh and prickly bushes and all that stuff. So we rode back on it because it was fun. And then we rode the other trail that you guys rode, and then we rode another trail, and then I got a flat tire. Okay, no ethanol in Central Mexico gas as well, by the way, just in case you're heading down there. Oh, boy, we've got a lot of questions. Do you have any more questions over there, or you want to run through these ones here?
Shoot those, because we can hold these over. We
can? Okay. Do the tablets have any good software for ADV type writing? I don't know. I mean, you can... most of these motorcycles these days come with a tablet. George, your 790 comes with a tablet mounted on the dashboard. I think if you pay enough money, they activate some sort of GPS thing on it, don't they? On the KTM 790? I don't know. I didn't play with it enough. I just twisted the throttle. Yeah, so lead nav is somebody suggesting that. That's always good. GPX Viewer Pro on an Android device. And Garmin version, whatever that is. I don't know.
So I've used quite a few different apps. There's one, what the hell is it called? OSMAND Plus. It's kind of like one of those open source things. I think it's Danish, and it's got really good base maps. And I've had good luck using Kyocera Duraforce Pro. That's sort of like a commercial grade construction worker type phone. It's really rugged. Mm-hmm. The only thing
because someone here says, phones overheat in the sun, which is I've had iPhones overheat all the time in the sun.
I don't use iPhone, so only Android. Android devices for me, anyway, in my experience, seem to work better. And this Kyocera, how do you say that? Kyocera Duraforce Pro, this phone. They don't last forever. Like, just the buzz of the bars eventually takes out both the camera and the GPS chip, and so there is this life cycle on these things. So I'm finding like you get about a good year out of them, and then they're pretty well junk. So I buy them on eBay, refurbished, whatever. It's like a refurbished phone. Yeah. I'm paying like $60, $70 for them. They last about a year. And then if I lose it, I break it, I destroy it, whatever, toss it. And I've got a bin of about 4 of these things.
Are they hard mounted to the handlebars?
Yeah, well, so I've experimented with lots of different mountings. There's Hondo Garage makes, if you've ever heard of them, they have this little thing. It's got these stainless steel kind of braided cable that sort of isolates and dampens it. I don't own that, but I've seen those. I've seen those fail twice. I think that the guys need to just be tightening. I think maybe it's a maintenance thing. This stuff vibrates, right? And so I think there's some maintenance that needs to be done on these things. You could put them on a ram arm. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. But I think the point is, here's something I'll say. I've gone through 4 of these Android phones, and I've never had to replace a Garmin Montana. So
And the Garmin Montana is a really good.
That's my go-to
I have a
device.
whole group of friends that run that, and they're happy with it. I think because the way that they can share between the Garmin Montanas.
well,
There's some sort of a.
is there like a
there's a
infrared sort of thing?
Yeah,
or like a
something. I don't know because I'm not
Oh, I don't know about
I'm
that.
not that guy.
I think I have an older one that does not do that.
Yeah, so they have something where that's their kind of go to, and I think it's just because they. They're it's like the same thing. If you're going to buy a Voyager Pro, and the real advantage is buddy tracking, you hope all your buddies have it. You hope your buddies have $600 in their pocket to
Drive sales for
to
groups of riders.
yeah, to get things like that. So there's a lot of different options. It's just a matter of researching it and figure out what's going to work for you. Maybe somebody in your group already has something, and that's kind of what you're going to gravitate to. So. And I think now with all the emerging apps and different things like that, you are going to find that, you're going to find an app to replace a lot of the hardware, and that's I mean, how many? I was thinking about there was something else that doesn't exist. Oh, you go into the store. You remember when there was a big giant section of GPS devices in the store, like in
Like
an
you go to Best Buy
store?
or something,
Yeah.
and there would be this huge array of
Now-
all kinds of specialty ones.
Now there's 3 or 4. What's a TomTom?
Yeah, they went away, right?
I promised you this, right, Hans? The 1942? Yeah, it's Don Julio 1942. Thanks to my in-laws, this is my Christmas present. So we're gonna have a little bit of this here.
Here, check it out.
What's that? You can have some, or you're
Well, I'm
not
gonna put a little brownie in one.
no,
that's
you're
my-
not
that's
gonna
my
put
thing.
brownie in it. Does anybody else want some? No, I'll do 3. They're just little tiny guys, just samplers. So it's called the piggyback bounce, going one off the other. Yeah, that's meshing, I think. Voyager Pro buddy tracking is great. Let's see, I'm in the market for some premix for my 17 KTM 250 SX. This is Charles Icard. I saw some online videos of some old bald guys swearing by using Amstel Sabre at 100 to 1 or 80 to 1 in their off-road bikes. And then a bunch of other videos creating a myth about the product. Have you tried this stuff, this mixture that's lean, pluses or minuses of doing this? Well, Charles, my current 2-strokes have oil injection, and so I pour oil into the little spout up by the headset, and I don't worry about it at all. Despite what bald guys may tell you about oil pooling up on reeds and things like that, haven't experienced any of it. I am told that the current oil injected bikes, and the Beta's oil injected, they run between 60 to 1 and 100 to 1, depending on your RPM. Maybe a little bit down like to 40 to 1 at certain times, based on strain and stress and stuff like that. That's not been confirmed. It's just what I've been told by people that said, I think this is what it is, and they probably thought correctly. So you're running away. You don't really want any? No 1942? I'm going to have some for you. So he's making room for it. So what do I mix mine at? Well, I usually take the bottle, and I kind of go like this, and the bottle... It could be any bottle that sponsors this show would be the best 2-stroke
That's the best oil
that I have in my hand at this time. That brand, and I take it and I go just like that. And
Is that your torque wrench hand?
It's a measuring dish too. It really does. It just pours the right amount. And so, so 4 ounces to the gallon is kind of like 32 to 1, 40 to 1 ish. 4 ounces a gallon, I think, is 32 to 1. So 3 ounces is more like, 40 to 1, and like 2, I don't know. Hey, how many bikes in my garage are seized right now? 0. Yeah. It's worked for a long time. And trust me, if I was racing, I promise you I'd go pull out the damn racer right and do it properly. But most of the time it's like, hey, just add, put some stuff in there. I've done it for a long time, but I practiced a lot, and I luckily didn't have any failures. So I was probably, when it said to pour in, when we were scared about it and you had to be running 20 to 1 with fucking castor bean oil, I probably poured 16-to-1 in just to be safe because I didn't want to seize my bike. And over time I learned it. And I did not do this when I was racing KTMs, 125s out in the desert because
You did.
because I seized a couple of them, but it was because of the oil, not because of the way I was mixing it. So I was very careful about that.
About your oil choice.
The oil of choice?
No. You said you were careful about the oil. Not the mix. It wasn't the ratio. It was the whatever oil it was. Do you recommend using, because a lot of guys will get very brand specific and have lots of fights, as this question kind of stipulated, like KTMs, they use Motorex. Should Yamaha guys use the Yamalube stuff? Like, is that a good guide?
I think that you should use whatever you have had success with. And if you talk to your buddies and they've had really good success with something, then it probably works too. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find an oil that doesn't do its job. Especially if you actually use the oil. It's, I had the petroleum engineer in here, Chris Real. He said something that was the first thing is make sure you're using oil. Make sure, what's the best oil for your motor? Well, we got to, Jimmy, take a step back, make sure there's oil in your motor. That's always a good thing. So, I think I've been guilty of buying that big gallon bottle at Walmart of 2-stroke outboard engine oil, and I've run that in some of my bikes. I haven't had any failures. I didn't do it on purpose. I did it because it was cheap, and mostly because before I was using that other product that we talked about earlier in the show that I said really
sponsors
should sponsor this damn thing. That's actually really good at, like, one of the techniques we used to keep carburetors clean back when we were having a lot of issues was the last tank of gas we ran through the bike before we put it away. We mixed it at 40-to-1-ish. And that oil coated some of the metal parts inside of the carburetor and stuff but it also, if it would pool up and goo up and stuff like that as well. So it wasn't the best thing, but it did work because we noticed our 2-stroke bikes did not have the same carburetors. Our carburetor issues. Our 4-stroke bikes did with the same gas, except it had oil in it. It was mixed. So, just that. What was that?
Power valve.
A power valve.
Some of those don't.
Oh, the some of it sticks to the power valves and stuff.
Coats them and gets them gooey.
Yeah, it definitely could. And there's oils that run cleaner than other ones, but have you ever seen how I ride a 2-stroke? I let them sing. I mean, they eat the whole time. I twist that throttle. There's never any goo on the back of my muffler.
Mine doesn't have any.
Yeah. Because what ratio are you running?
60.
60-to-1. And what oil are you running?
Maximum.
Okay, Maxima at 60-to-1 is the best oil in this room right now. Right?
K2.
K2. Yeah. So
Motul.
Huh?
Motul.
Oh, you're running Motul.
Yeah.
Well, you were riding a 4-stroke today.
A different bike.
I know. You can't prove it to me. I saw him ride all day. His bike didn't seize. It seemed like it was working perfect. He mixed it himself. Did you use the ratio right?
Yep.
You did. That's precision. Yeah, that's what you got to do. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to the guy who just he has this wrist adjusting.
This torque wrist.
This torque wrist. It's only good at torquing, not pouring oil and stuff. Who wants them? Don Julio. Come on, guys. Come on.
I'm in.
Yeah, come on over here. You're not even gonna get in the frame. Nobody will see who you are.
You're not a torqueaholic?
Torque.
How about a plastic?
Anybody else? One more.
Yeah. How about a plastic water pump?
Plastic
Impeller.
impeller.
Do they melt?
If you're really hard on your clutch, your plastic impeller might melt. I mean, that's outside of the expected the tolerances, I guess. I've never had I've in all of the bikes that I've had, and I know some of my Husabergs. I mean, I get those things hot because I run them hard. Because they make a lot of power. They have plastic impellers. Actually, I think every KTM I have, except for the KTM 350 that has the Boysen setup in it, has a plastic impeller in it. I've never had a plastic impeller failure at all. So I don't think it's a big deal. Let me run through, see if we have any questions. Pour a little more 2-stroke oil in your gas. You're good to go. Let's see. Well, I'm hearing that Bel-Ray HR2 is the best if you have a KX500. If you're San Felipe Bob, Yamalube R2 is the best because Bob is a Yamaha guy. And David Brown says the smell of castor oil does him right. And then San Felipe Bob comes back and hits on one of my favorites, Rock Oil Strawberry Scented 2-Stroke Oil. Now, when I was at Dirt Rider, Rock Oil sent over a little care package to us, and lucky they did, because I didn't really. I mean, I'd seen Rock Oil on GP bikes and stuff like that. I was aware of the brand, but I never used their stuff. They're back in the States, by the way. The guy had actually contacted me a while back, but I dropped the ball as usual. That is good tequila, isn't it? But Rock Oil makes the best air filter oil if you're cleaning your air filters on a regular basis. They make this stuff called synthetic water washable air filter oil, SWAF. And it literally, it's like no-toil. So you know what no-toil is like. No-toil is a 2-part system. It's not really oil per se, but you use their cleaner and those filters come out like they're brand new. Well, the Rock Oil stuff, and we did a test on it at Dirt Rider, and it won the shootout. And everybody's like, you can't use that. What if I wash my bike and water gets on it? Well, you have to agitate it. But anyways, but you put this stuff on, oil the filter up, and it gets super dirty. You put it in the sink and wash it, and it's like brand new and no residue. It was incredible. But it's got a lot of carrier agents, alcohol in it and stuff like that. So it is kind of hard on the foam and hard on the glue. If it sits, like if you're not changing your filter on a regular basis, and I have a lot of bikes out here that sit for 6 months before they have to have the filter changed, and so it's not good in that thing. But if you're changing your filter every 3 weeks or something like that, man, that's some good stuff. But back to the strawberry scented 2-stroke oil, that was the other thing that came in the care package. And I was racing KTM 144 at the time. I was just going out and racing for fun, and man, did my ass smell good. People are like, man, what are you running in that thing? Like, those are my farts, buddy. No, people are always behind me. You know how I ride, like wide open, singing it. Yeah. Send it. Yeah. Okay. Boy, we're going way over time here. 8:30. It's about time for bedtime.
Shut it down.
We can get close to shutting it down. Hey, you got any more good questions?
We ran through quite a few of these. We had some stuff that we were gonna maybe try to cover with Tour of Idaho, because we've got some of these guys here.
You know what? We might go. They're not. These guys are old and they're not asleep. So we might shut this thing down and do a second quick little Tour of Idaho.
These Supercross guys use Rekluse?
Yes, I think so. I don't know. They never tell you what they're using, but I think some of the guys are using them. So anti-stall thing. A little more
and more. Like, it's just because their equipment has gotten so good, it's so reliable. Some of the guys are starting to use the auto clutch setup. They've been using the torque drive plates for a long time, the manual. But now with the auto clutch, some of them are using it.
I see guys dropping their bikes and they just pick right up and off they go.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to that. A lot more than like just what. There's some interesting stuff I've heard of, and why the bikes do what they do. Like, your bike has a tip over sensor and it shuts off. You know how like some bikes, like they fall over, they have a stepper motor inside the fuel injection and it idles up higher. So maybe when your bike tips over and the tip over sensor notices it tipped over, it runs the idle up higher so it doesn't stall. Ever heard of that?
Those are features. So like with the Get ECU, those are things that you can go into and we can tune that so we can turn off the tip over sensor.
We didn't talk about anything that you sell.
Whatever. It's all good.
What's your website?
Tacomoto.co. But we can go in and we can change those parameters. So we can make that tip over sensor. We can disable it. We can change the time duration to whatever you want. So if you're falling a lot, we can make that. Hypothetically, in case.
Do not go to Tacomoto. Come to JimmyLewisOffroad.com, and I will prevent.
So that you won't tip over.
I will prevent the falling over. I'll help you with that part of the equation. Then you don't need to have his tune.
Either way,
it'll be all better. So hey, on that note, we're gonna shut this episode down because we've been going a little bit too long. But before, hey, look at George. He's such a good guy. He put up your website. Your
Thanks,
website's
George.
up on the thing. Hey, this may look familiar because you've seen it flashing up on the background screen. These are the fuck you, and I didn't say that as a mean thing. It's FAHQ stickers for Nevada, the Nevada chapter. Evidently, I was subjected to handing these things out, and you guys went riding with me today, and that's your fault. And because of that, you're gonna get.
Thank you.
You're gonna get one of these guys.
What is this fat? I've seen these guys around. What is this?
It's a good club with a bad name. So here's to you guys.
Is this just like a ride
Al,
posse?
you don't get one yet. You're gonna have to come out and go riding with me. So yeah, you guys can have a sticker, put it on your bike, take pictures of it, and now you're part of the club, even though you don't want to be in it. So hey. We're not happy until you're not happy. It says so right on my computer. So we're going to shut this sucker down. Good seeing all you guys. Follow us on whatever social media platforms. Go check out dirtbiketest.com. Tech Talk is the code on DDC racing.net. That's for your sprocket needs. Email me if you want to get some Kate spars, buy some climb gear. We like all of you, and yeah, thanks to Don Julio. We'll see you out on the trail, right, Mike?
Go get some adventure.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Cheers.